इनको।
रुकना भाई, पानी गिर गया। ये 4 बोतल अपने परिवार के लिए रख
ये
लेता हूँ।
4 बोतलें। अच्छा, समझ गया।
नहीं, क्या समझ गए आप?
नहीं ठीक है,
नहीं,
समझ गया।
आपके कहने का मतलब है कि हमारी 4 बैग में होती है?
मैंने ऐसा कब बोला?
वाह जी वाह वाह वाह। तो है, क्या हो गया?
कुछ नहीं हो गया, मैंने क्या बोला?
अल्टरनेट डेज पे जाते हैं, क्या हो गया?
देखिए, आप तमीज से बात कीजिए वरना पानी छीन लूंगा आपसे मैं।
आप एक एटमी ताकत से 10 रुपए की पानी की बोतल छीन लेंगे?
एक तो आप मुझे न्यूक्लियर पावर की धमकी देना बंद कीजिए, और मुझे विश्वास नहीं है कि पाकिस्तान के पास कोई न्यूक्लियर बम है।
क्यों नहीं? आपको भरोसा क्यों नहीं?
कैसे बना लिया आपने न्यूक्लियर बम?
हमने मटन भी बनाया, लेकिन आपने नहीं पूछा कि मटन कैसे बनाया, जबकि मटन महंगा हो गया है। लेकिन आप ये जो 10 रुपए में न्यूक्लियर बम बन जाता है उसके लिए बार बार पूछते हैं। मेरे को नहीं समझ में आ रही।
Back in your 360 from the Reddit incels. Go ahead, Freeberg, read it out loud.
David Friedberg deserves more hate. He and the others have made it their mission to convince us that reforming Social Security is the only way forward to survive. He hides behind this nerdy, apolitical persona and then goes hard right out of nowhere. If Sachs fearmongered about the deficit as an excuse to restructure entitlement programs, we would see that as the partisan right-wing take it is. When Friedberg does it, we're supposed to act like he has no skin in this game. He's just the science guy. No, he's a rich guy who would rather work your grandparents to death than pay an extra 5% tax.
All right, there's your review. Very good. I think you took it well. And you don't have to respond now. Don't be defensive. Just take it in.
Just to counter briefly, I have highlighted multiple times. I think we're going to 70% tax rates. But hey, you know, to each their own. Everyone's got an opinion.
That won't generate more revenue.
Yeah.
If history's any guide.
One of the characteristics of burnout is feeling like your actions have no meaning, almost like kind of like a cynicism, like you're just going through the motions, but nothing that you do actually really matters or is going to impact anything. And when you don't have boundaries, you also sort of feel like everything's closing in on you. You don't have a choice. You're not actually living your life. Your life is sort of happening to you. So, I think it's tough. I think that this is one of the things, this is why therapy takes so long, because you have to tease apart all the different pieces, because certainly not having boundaries makes it more likely that you're going to become burnt out. But when you are burnt out, and even little b burnout, your boundaries are usually worse. So it's like this cycle.
Is totally possible. Last year, I started 2 brand new YouTube channels from zero, and I was able to grow them very fast, getting hundreds of thousands of views, even with not a lot of subscribers. Now, before I share with you how to do this, I want you to hear from some of my favorite creators on advice for growing your small YouTube channel.
You had no money. What would be the first 10 videos you tried to make on a new channel? I guess that's advice for a new person. And nobody knows you.
Yeah, nobody knows me. Yeah, like hypothetically, I have a mask on.
And you also, I guess, don't have the wisdom.
Well, if I don't have what I have in my head, then I would say just fail. Like, just a lot of people get analysis paralysis, and they'll just sit there and they'll plan their first video for 3 months. And
yeah,
I'm any of you listening, if you, especially if you have 0 videos on your channel, your first video is not going to give views. Period. It's not. Your first 10 are not going to give views. I can very confidently say that. So stop sitting there and thinking for months and months on end, and just get to work and start uploading. Like, all you need to do is this.
Code. So the first inevitable, just to clarify, is will we stop?
AI will not be stopped.
Okay. So the second inevitable is
they'll be significantly smarter. As much in the book, I predict 1 billion times smarter than us by 2045.
I mean, they're already smarter than 99.99% of the population.
100%.
ChatGPT-4 knows more than any human on planet Earth. Knows more information.
Absolutely, 1,000 times more. 1,000 times more. By the way, the code of a transformer, the T in a GPT, is 2,000 lines long. It's not very complex. It's actually not a very intelligent machine. It's simply predicting the next word. Okay, and a lot of people don't understand that. ChatGPT as it is today. Those kids that if you're in America and you teach your child all of the names of the
start to dive into them. Like you mentioned in the beginning of this, like I started talking with you about like the East, and you started. I remember you told me in 2017, like you should read the Bhagavad Gita. So I literally wrote it. I got it like the next week and read it while we were traveling. And so there was that. And as I was writing the book, I was like, what's the thing? Because the original title of the book was The Psychology of Taking Action. Because I was looking at the Mindset Mentor podcast. I have 1,400 episodes, and I was like, it's just me speaking for almost every single one of them. And I was like, what do I teach? Like, what do people want from me? And I was like, it's almost all like tips and tricks to understand yourself to take action. Because everybody who's listening to a podcast has the awareness of, I want to improve, I want to get better, I want something different, but how do I do it? And so I started saying, okay, if taking action is what the book's going to be about, like, why don't people take action in the first place? And one of the things that pops up for people is fear. Like there's some sort of fear that pops up for them. And I had a conversation with one of my friends who went and lived in the tribe with a tribe, a native Brazilian tribe in the middle of Brazil.
In the sense of like, I just saw coaches who were just constantly making, 40K months and
$40,000 a month. That'd be nice.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, that's where the head was at. My head was at.
And how much you bring in a month?
It varies.
Average. Give me an average. Let's work with an average here. Break it down between the low months, high months. What's the average across? Just a brief pause to ask you to please consider subscribing. Look how close we are to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far, and back to the video.
I would say a low month could be anywhere from 2,000-3,000.
Okay.
To an average is, I would say 6,500.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
6,500, yeah.
That's your average? That's not your high? That's your average?
That's an average.
Okay, 6,500. Fantastic.
Yourself. Simon.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be here. I have to thank you first and foremost, and many reasons. I'm a huge fan of all your work, but the conversation we had when we were over in LA was received so unbelievably well by the listeners on this podcast. It did millions and millions and millions of downloads in such a short space of time that I had to nag you to get you to come back again when you were here in the UK. So,
well, it's nice to be back, and it's nice to do it on your home turf.
Yeah, literally in my home.
Literally in your home.
There's so many things that I want to talk to you about, but one of the things that I was curious about, because I've been thinking a lot about this in my life, is this idea of our whys evolving.
Mm-hmm.
What is your why, and has it evolved over the last decade at all?
So my why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. So together, each of us can change our world for the better.
Aligned with what you're seeing on the field, Jamal? I think what I would tell you is that I think the first wave was just a lot of boards who read the words AI somewhere in an article and then went to a board meeting and turned to the CEO and said, what's your AI strategy? Mm-hmm. And then the CEO turns around and sends that down into their org, and it eventually hits the CTO's desk. And I think the first wave is mostly people just spending money because they had large existing budgets. And so they were like, let's just go and try a bunch of different things. And I think now we're going through the sorting function of realizing that there's a big difference between probabilistic software and deterministic software. That's probably the biggest reason why you're seeing so many failure modes in sales and marketing. It's very hard to codify sales and marketing into a set of heuristics that never change. But back office processes, why they're so good and a great target for AI is ultimately
dealt with were high-level drug traffickers who had hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm doing this interview in silhouette because two agencies and an intelligence agency informed me that the Medellin cartel issued a contract on my life. I spent a year and a half putting together what I think is one of the more sophisticated fronts used in undercover. I built the persona of Robert Musella. I dressed the part, certainly had the lifestyle, drove a Rolls-Royce, Mercedes, Jaguar. I was embedded in real businesses. Had an air charter service with a private jet. We had a jewelry chain with 30 locations on the East Coast. A lot of cash goes through the Diamond District every single day. So if you've got those kinds of businesses, you have a very good excuse for where the cash came from. I was embedded in an investment company, a mortgage brokerage business, and even a brokerage firm with a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. And then I and my partner began a 2-year